You're listening to Data Center Therapy. Please take a number, and an engineer will be right with you.
There you go. Thank you.
I didn't know it was a group activity.
It's a group activity. We are clapping in sync here on Data Center Therapy. So welcome back to the clapping episode 96 of Data Center Therapy. This is a podcast by Ivoxy Consulting that talks all things IT, both healthy, critical, supportive, nitpicky alike. And I thought I had that memorized, so I just stumbled well into that intro. Yeah.
Good job.
How are you doing? Yeah. We share our hopes and dreams, opinions both positive and critical, all with a touch of empathy, because at the end of the day, we all need a seat on that couch with our feet elevated, no doubt about it.
There you go. Finish it up with a success, with a positive upswing.
Yes. My name is Matt Yette. I am your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Matt Cozzolino. How are you, Matt?
Hello, everyone. I'm great. How's it going? Wherever you be.
It's good to see you. It's good to have you on the pod again. It's been a little bit, not too bad, but it's been a little bit. It's been a crazy beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. We are joined by our longtime co-worker and friend, Mr. Jeremy Goosen, too. I want to call that out. Hey, Mr. Jeremy.
Hello. Good. Glad to be on here.
So you've been on the pod three times, right?
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah. And
nice.
So in case you're not familiar with Jeremy, he's been at Ivoxy for a total of, probably a dozen years at this point, right?
Yeah.
So
2010.
between the three of us, we have about 40 Ivoxy years in us, I think.
Between the three of us, we could have a kid in college at this point.
I don't believe that's possible, Matt.
No? 30 years between the three of us?
Me and you have a kid in college. I don't want to talk about that. But yeah, a couple of housekeeping items before we dive in. On April 10th, so we're recording this at the end of March, so this should be out here early April. So you've got about a week to get going here if you're interested. On April 10th, we have a workshop, free to attend, a virtual workshop with Ryan Grelk, and he's going to be talking about, it's currently called, it may be different by the time the workshop happens at this rate, but VCF operations, which you may know as ARIA operations, which you may know as vRealize operations, which you might know as vCloud operations, or vSphere operations. So VCF operations is the current title of it, the current name of the product, but this is the things that most people out there know as vRealize ops, VROPS. And so the current shape of that is, changing. It's going to be a really core part of what the suite offerings from Broadcom are going forward. And Ryan's going to tell us all about that. And he's going to give a little teaser content to what will be the class on VCF operations coming up May 20th to 23rd. So the workshop is April 10th, if I haven't said the day already. April 10th is the workshop. We'll have a link here on the post that goes along with the podcast. And it'll be a link on ivoxy.com too if you want to register for that. It's going to be great. Probably an hour and a half. Ryan's going to go through and workshop and show you what you're going to learn if you choose to take the class as well. So we've already got a good number of registrants on that. So jump in before we run out of room there. Trying to think if there's anything else. So
yeah,
what are we talking about today, Kaz?
What are we talking about today? I heard some little birdie told me it was going to be some network connectivity, some SD-WAN stuff, which kind of lines up because we got the the network guy himself, Mr. Goosen here, don't we?
Can I old man curmudgeon this to start? Can I get off my lawn, off your lawn for a minute? What's this SD-WAN thing about? Because last I knew, I could just buy a T1 from here, and I bring Comcast in here, and I have this MPLS line. I got MPLS, right? MPLS.
No one knows your T1.
T1. Okay, sorry. I went to college in the early aughts. Uh-huh. So. But SD-WAN. I have a hardware-defined WAN. What's software-defined WAN all about?
Well, that's what we're here to talk about, because there's confusion about what actually SD-WAN is. Some companies call it where they're going to optimize their actual internet connections. Hey, I got a couple internet connections. I'm going to bond them together and I'm going to make them awesome. And then there's the Merakis, the Fortinets, the Palo Altos, where they're going to use, multiple different interfaces to connect, a LAN together, or SD-WAN, LAN, whatever you want to call it, right? It's different sites connecting together. And Yeah.
Is
go
there an
ahead.
actual term for the internet optimization? Like, hey, I've got 2 or 3 links, and I'm just going to make that better. Is there a different term for that than SD-WAN?
I wish there was, because that's where the confusion starts.
Ah.
Because even the
Isn't that kind of a
manufacturers,
policy-based routing with a certain policy that's specific to performance or route distance.
yes. Now there's so like Palo, they have a internet. I call it like internet optimization, right? They have a product that'll do that, and you can spend a whole bunch of time configuring policies. And I want this traffic to go across this link unless it has this much latency, then you move it, right? That's a nightmare. And so then Netscope also does that. Bigleaf does this, but Bigleaf does it better than the other ones, in my opinion. And so there is no specific name for actual internet optimization versus SD-WAN. And that's where the really confusing part comes in. And so if you're trying to look for specific solutions, you're probably going to get bombarded with, oh, let me connect all your LANs together in your different remote branches. And really, I've got 2 internet connections. I want to make them awesome. I want to be able to take advantage of both of them.
So I originally thought this was I've got multiple sites, but you're saying I could have multiple backhauls brought in to a single site theoretically, and still potentially have a use for this kind of thing.
That's kind of where that confusion comes in. Is there's a different use case, right? So we got to take a look at the use cases, right? So for you,
I always just figured multiple physical links in a meshed VPN, site to site all around.
Well, that's why I've been wanting to do this for a while, because it is confusing. And that's why it's like, as soon as I started getting into customers asking, hey, how do I take advantage of both of my internet connections at once? So then you have to go down the rabbit hole of what products are available, and they're calling themselves SD-WAN. When really I'm thinking, I'm thinking SD-WAN. I'm thinking, okay, I got a bunch of Merakis in a ring at a bunch of different locations, and they're all connected up.
That's what I think about.
That's what I think about too, until I had to look closer. So after looking closer, now you can look at, okay, so I have 2 different internet connections. I want to use them both at the same time, and I want to present the same IP address to the internet no matter which one I'm on. Well, there's only 2 companies I know of right now that can do that. That's the Bigleaf and Cato Networks. Those are the 2 that you can take 2 internet connections, and no matter which one is up or down, you present the same public IPs to the internet.
And how is it doing that? Are they proxying your traffic? Do they have to set up like a front end proxy on their owned IP address and then plumb it down into you?
That's absolutely true. So what they give you, in Cato's case, they give you a socket. It's really kind of a firewall, but it's a socket. You plug in a couple different internet connections and you connect to their POP. Their POP then sends you to the internet on their IP addressing. If you go with like a Bigleaf will assign you a set of their public IPs, and that will be on the inside interface of their router. That router will be on site at your location. So your firewall, you put their public IPs on your firewall, and then you plug in all the different internet connections you have at that location, and then that router then takes those connections, bonds them together, and then it goes to their POP. Now, do they have POPs all over the place? They have POPs all over the place, so that way if a POP fails, it moves to the next one. But what the Cato and the Bigleaf do is they're measuring these internet connections all the time. I think it's 10 times a minute that they're measuring for latency, loss, and jitter. Each one of them does it a little differently, but they're using the AIs, to measure these things.
Watching that traffic.
Watching that traffic. Hey, guess what? Comcast is performing better for voice, but Loom is doing better for bulk data, right? So it's going to send the traffic across the links that are actually doing better for certain types of traffic. We were paid to do a POC for a larger state agency. When we put the Bigleaf, and we didn't have Cato at the time, but we had Netscope and Palo Alto. It's pretty cool that you can see all your traffic going across the Comcast link, and you're running some serious data. You yank that Comcast link out, it moves over to Lumen without a blip. No problems. You don't lose your connections.
And to be fair, like, this is something that anyone could set up, right? You could, without buying, say, the Bigleaf or whatever, I could set up 2 internet connections. I could advertise some traffic. I could lose connection over here and have that fail over to my other link. But to do that, there's a lot of work that I, as the end user, to set that up have to do, right? It's not as simple as what you're talking about here, where I can get this box from a vendor, drop it in, plug my internet to it, pay the service.
Well, it sounds like you're pushing that responsibility up a layer where you don't have to worry about like BGP routing and stuff like that within, on your
Well,
end.
you got to own your own /24 to do that too.
Right.
Right.
So it kind of makes that
harder
simple.
and harder to do.
Mm-hmm. And if I have maybe like 3 or 4 services, I need 2 or 3 IP addresses because that's really all I'm putting out to the internet. Why does it make sense for me to buy a 24, right?
Absolutely. What's kind of cool about these products also is that I'm moving my location. I'm moving across town to a new building. Just take the device, the IPs go with you.
Mm-hmm.
That
to me, I know, Kaz, you're focusing a lot on disaster recovery and availability, and I've actually we are the data availability people, and I feel like right now we're almost peaking and actually executing the literal term, the literal sense of that term, in that to get this whole DR thing. I back up my data. Yeah, my data's over there. That is so table stakes now. Like it's not that it's not important, but that problem has been solved forever, and you got a million options to get your data from there to there. How do you then access that data as transparently and efficiently as possible and as quickly after something changes? That's a network magic issue, and it's holy hell. It really isn't, unless you put some real work into that.
And that's the one that I come up with the most. Is it's really easy to set up that replication, but how do you get the users there is the problem. That's kind of what I've actually got a couple of customers, and they're used to the way you do it at ISP. Is you buy that, you do the BGP peering, you do your /24s, and I'm like, you guys have like 3 services publicly available. Maybe we can do that differently, right?
yeah.
But
I enjoyed the solution, quite a bit. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah,
I was going to say,
what's funny? I'm surprised that we're talking mostly about multiple internet links at one site. I'm super surprised because, again, Jared, I hear SD-WAN and I think, how many branches you got? My first question. How many sites are we talking about here? But you say that, there seems to be quite a bit of utilization for this technology in a single site multi-WAN setup.
Yeah, and I think that's where it grew out of, because back in the day, to your point that you asked a bit earlier, Yeti, is it became the internet connections because getting a Comcast and a CenturyLink and a DSL and a cable internet was cheaper than buying the MPLS service.
Oh yeah.
Right? So
maybe
I can just buy some internet and do some VPN tunnels, and that's fast enough, right? That's kind of where that SD-WAN started.
And SD-WAN's kind of the VPN tunnel easy button.
Yeah. Well, I assume so, right? Yeah. Right, Jeremy?
Yeah. A lot of these products have definitely made it easier to connect to your branches, right? And from branch to branch to branch to branch. Meraki's dead simple. It's a few clicks and I can get to my different branches. And with Meraki, you could even plug in multiple internet connections, and it'll use it and it'll do it. But when you're going out to the internet and one of your internet connections fails, then
hard.
Yes, say that 5 times fast. But as soon as one of the internet connections fails, your public IP address changes, and so if you have inbound services, that breaks. There's always a blip whenever you're going to the internet, and you're not getting the benefits of how an internet connection is performing, because a lot of our tools don't tell us exactly how much latency, loss, and jitter are actually going across each internet connection.
That's a whole other thing that you don't set up very often. Is like, let me monitor that and then actually have something to do something once those metrics hit, once that value climbs up, right? That's yet again.
And I like the fact that the IP stays the same, because that's supposed to be a problem solved by DNS. And I think DNS, as crucial as it is, it's something that people design around the theoretical best performance of DNS. So if all things are perfect and it's sunny outside and 70 degrees and there's not a drop of rain and it's 2 forecast, great. DNS can be wonderful. But if there's a problem, it's DNS. Mm-hmm. We all know it. We've all run into it.
And what's the IT haiku?
It's not DNS. There's no way it's DNS.
It's totally.
It was
It would
DNS.
I will never not find that
all
funny.
the time, and it's so
It's true.
apt. Yes,
It's so true.
and it's also one of
Um,
those ones that's hard. Is like we can make the change to the entry. We can update the DNS entry, but that doesn't kind of to your point. That
there are a
doesn't,
lot of layers to the person who's relying on that change.
Exactly.
Did it get to them yet? What's your upstream?
right.
Can I tell you one more thing fun that you can do with these things?
Do it.
Please.
Starlink, cellular, plug in anything. Your IP
Okay,
address
Kaz.
stays the same.
There's your cue. There's your cue. Tell us, Kaz.
What?
Starlink.
Yeah, it's a technology. It's a service. It does a thing. It's really cool.
I never want to hear that you're unreachable again, by the way, because I've heard a rumor that you might have it set up for yourself.
I did buy some Starlink. I do intend to leverage it to see how boat life for me, not van life, but let's give that a try and see how that works. Yeah.
You're not using it right now, though, because it's a nice, smooth voice, because we could tell when you'd hop satellites on our Zoom calls before.
I'm the nerd in me is super into like how that technology works, and oh my god, that's so cool. I'm the one that watched Discovery Channel TLC while I'm playing with my Legos in the living room, right?
Yeah.
My phone
Starlink completely changed the landscape of like Southeast Alaska. Before we were using, for one of our customers, we were using low orbit satellites, 10 meg connection, 600 milliseconds latency, flat, 600 milliseconds, 3,500 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to get a whole year subscription, and you're only these guys were seasonal. They were using it maybe 4 months. Wow, that's a lot of money. And now you can get it, a couple $100, 100 up and 100 up and 100 down, and I don't know what it is up. I don't have Starlink at home, but it changed the landscape extremely.
Well, my iPhone now, so Apple has their deal with Global Star, I think is who it through, where the idea is you're out hiking and holy crap, I've got a real problem here and there's no cell coverage, but you point your phone at the stinking sky and it's like over here, doot, and you can send and receive text messages. Like, and it used to be just like emergency, like predefined text, and so like SOS and all that kind of my location, Now you can straight up text, like iMessage, over the satellite, and then now I have an iPhone, but I have T-Mobile too. T-Mobile paired up with Starlink, where now I'll be on a ride on a Saturday and we'll be in a canyon or something. My phone will say, you're now connected to Starlink. If you need to send a text, point at the sky and do this, that. It's unreal. I mean, it kind of wonder, I don't think terrestrial cell networks are going to go anywhere, but at the same time, the coverage theoretically could be unlimited at that point, right? Sirius satellite radio can go where internet can't.
SD-WAN for your cell phone, right? I've got my
Yeah.
cell. I've got my wireless cell, my 4G. I got my satellite. I got my
I knew I was making a point.
Wi-Fi.
I knew I was making a point in there somewhere. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah. One of the other cool things is I'm opening a new branch, and I don't have internet connection there yet. You put a cellular connection there, you put a Starlink there, you put one of these appliances there, whether it's Bigleaf, Cato, or whatever, right? And soon as you get your new circuits, soon as you get whatever, nothing changes. You're just adding bandwidth.
You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait for your deployment for the ISP to come in and drop a line, which we all know is always done on time and promptly.
I mean,
you know what's another fun one?
You get a project manager, and they take care of all of that.
Oh,
what,
yeah.
Jeremy?
I got another fun one. So I have three 1 gig internet connections, and I have them plugged into my Bigleaf. I have a 10 gig connection from my firewall up to my Bigleaf. I have 10 gig all the way down. I need to do a very large, fast file transfer. You can watch the firewalls, and you can watch the connectivity go above 1 gig. So it will take those 3 1 gig internet connections, bond them together, and you can go over 1 gig of traffic.
I was gonna ask you that. Are these kind of things still somewhat session based in that if I start browsing to a web page, it's going to use that one path for all of my traffic until it decides to fail over? Or it sounds like it's able to mux those connections together and use the entire bandwidth. I know when we talk about like port channels, we say it's truly only a single link and it only right? Yeah.
Yes. It's a 5-lane road, but you only get one.
You can only drive in one lane at a time, yeah.
I don't have exact evidence of it of it just being the file transfer. But the file transfer might have been taking up a gig, and then maybe everybody else on there was doing half a gig, or, half a gig or 2 gig, traffic.
Okay. So it's kind of like QoSing, not just the type of traffic, but also the links that'll go down.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's open this
It's
HOV
interesting
link.
how we're now utilizing our links. Where back in the day it was packet shaping, right? I can't remember the name of the company. I used to work at an integrator in upstate New York, and we had one that was basically this with the T1, right? You'd have that, but spam email traffic would consume half that bandwidth nonstop. Just the email hitting everybody's Exchange server, and they would have to get a packet shaper in order to prioritize what traffic's going to make it in or out, instead of everybody just getting slowed down.
Mm-hmm. That's always a fun one.
Cool.
That whole QoSing on your ingress traffic. Let's figure out what's important to send over this link after it's already landed on my site.
Yeah. Well, now you've got data centers aren't going to go away. Self-hosted services aren't going away. Please God, I hope they aren't. But so much of the bandwidth now, depending on how many. Let's imagine we're a company, we're all back in the office now, but you've got a good headcount in that office too. But your email is no longer down the hallway. Your email is up in the cloud. So you've got an enormous amount of bandwidth potentially going back and forth between Microsoft 365 also.
Mm-hmm.
All those Teams calls, all those OneDrive links.
Jeremy, do you think the SASE, the Secure Access Service Edge construct grew out of SD-WAN? Is it part of it? Would you lump those two things together when you're talking about that kind of a solution?
It depends on the customer and what they're looking for. The Catos of the world, they are definitely a software as a service. They are SASE, right? Mm-hmm. All the processing is actually done in the cloud before mm-hmm. it gets down to the user. That's a great solution. If you're going to roll your own and have your own firewall and your own stuff, right? You want to have your own security stuff, then SD-WAN to you is just make my internet connections awesome. To me, mm-hmm. That's the way I look at it. But if you don't want to roll your own and you want to have that extra secure software edge, I think it's what they were calling it. We get new taglines all the time. I can't remember all the acronyms, but anyways, it's the firewall in the cloud with the socket at the location, and you get all the benefits of all that extra heavy processing power in the data center before it even comes down to you at the location of where you're at. Mm-hmm. If you're looking for a full solution for all your locations and you want to just throw the kitchen sink as far as security products at them, it's all right there. It's all one pane of glass for everything, especially with the Catos.
Well, a lot of those type of products, you had mentioned they've got their POPs that are local, kind of to the geo, right? Mm-hmm. And then once you go over the public internet to get to that point, which ideally is 2 or 3 hops away, right? And from there, then they've got dedicated peering relationships with the ISPs to get to Amazon, to get to the Azure, so that you're from the POP 1 or 2 hops away from those cloud services. That's kind of the question, is because you can deploy that. I know I've seen some of them where your client VPN will host the head end endpoint at all of our different locations. So no matter where your users are, they connect to the local one, and then it's on that dedicated backhaul. Which the idea there is you get it off of the public internet, and you can run on that paid for high-speed transit over the inside peering links, I guess. Right?
Yeah, which is great for, say you're a West Coast company and you have a CEO traveling to East Coast, right? They connect to the East Coast POP, ride that speed all the way over, and they come back down into the office just rather than connecting from the West Coast to the East Coast internets. So I think it's a great thing.
Nice.
You seen any cell like whether cellular or satellite backhauls, Jeremy? You seen any of that at customers as probably not a priority link, right? But at least a backup. Well,
like I told you, Southeast Alaska, that's the only link. It's
crazy.
Yeah, nowhere. You got nothing. They shut the power off at some of these places where I was at in Southeast Alaska, and you're in the 1800s.
And there are probably sites that are ships, right, that are mobile, and that's the name of that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, they could have a routable IP address, right? You could host services off a ship, really, if you wanted to. Right?
You could.
Because you basically established a tunnel up to company's POP, and they're routing it back down to you based on that socket.
Yeah.
And I know Starlink is getting some competition. I think Verizon is teaming up with somebody else to try and bring some competition to Starlink. I don't know who it is. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but I saw it the other day because I was jealous of the T-Mobile thing. But I have Verizon, and I'm not going to switch to T-Mobile. So yeah.
Why not? You want my referral code, Jeremy?
No,
because
that's
my
okay.
Verizon works way more than my girlfriend's phone.
You know what's funny? It's so funny because that comment right there is the biggest "it depends" ever.
It is.
It's like, where do you live? Where's your geo?
Maybe a decade ago that was more consistent, but I think lately, yeah, it's hit or miss. She actually had a good suggestion when we started dating was like, we're on different providers, so if my phone doesn't work, hers might, and if hers doesn't work, mine might, so that we've got some redundancy.
That's nice.
Yeah.
You got
It's an edge case.
Kind of like the cars that have the radios now. The cars that my truck's on AT&T, my phone's on T-Mobile, and usually they share anyway. Though sometimes Verizon used to be on CDMA, and so you want that kind of diversity. Now everything's GSM or one way or the other, and yeah.
Well, I didn't realize until we were working with a customer that actually did. I think they did inventorying for hardware at cell providers and whatnot. They run those cell networks just like MPLS, where there's vastly different like environments. So all of the fleet of connectivity for your truck that you were talking about on AT&T is its own kind of provider. So someone manages the physical towers, and AT&T phones have their own AT&T phone.
No, I mean
network.
they're using the same towers, Matt. They're not individual towers.
Someone manages the towers, and AT&T runs their phone network MPLS-esque thing across all the towers.
Oh.
And then
So there's
T-Mobile
somebody
will
who's
do
running
that.
backhaul.
And then Subaru will do that, and it's their own software-defined network on all the
They're
cell
an
towers.
NVMO, is that what they call it?
Yeah, something like that. If you have enough endpoints, you can say, hey, tower provider, stand me up my own cell network kind of a thing, leveraging all of the existing.
Which is basically a virtual environment.
Which is
probably,
what they're all doing now these days, right?
Yeah. And I think Mobile Virtual Network Operator, MVNO.
Yeah,
and I don't know if that's exactly what they're doing, what you're talking about, but yeah, to that effect.
Yeah, that. Yeah.
I don't know about you. I guess from a phone standpoint, I'm not on phone calls so much anymore, but overall, of all the things that I truly dislike about IT, and I find myself wanting to snap my phone in half at least once or twice a day, it has nothing to do with the cell network. And that was not always the case. I got the iPhone 3 back in 2009 or something. That AT&T was completely useless. Didn't work. Overwhelmed to the hilt. And now, I don't know about you, but like the cell phone network and data connectivity doesn't even cross my plane of mildly obnoxious anymore. And it used to be like the big thing, cell service.
Yeah.
Go to concerts.
Yeah.
Pull that phone out.
I remember
Try that.
I remember going to the conferences or something and sitting in the
Sitting
in the room where they've got all of us IT nerds.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's got a
700
couple of
access
laptops.
points. The only thing
You
that's
can see 'em
working is
around.
your nuts are baking from the microwave. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, they've hit that. They figured that one out. You can still get it.
Yeah, I remember the old conferences where they'd give you a general password that you'd have to connect to with your phone, and then there'd be some guy over there trying to scarf accounts from everybody in the area.
Or the open, or no password, just open.
Yeah.
Join a network, Jeremy. How do you like that?
Yeah. This is back
Let me
before
fire up my
private
WireGuard
VPN.
on-demand VPN.
Or
to my
turn on a
house and
VPN.
Let me get everything back to my house right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gotten much more convenient to do VPNs back to your house now than it used to be. Now it's just a button
for me. Yeah, the on-demand stuff is still shaky for me because I'll forget that it's trying to connect or it doesn't work, or it's home even though it's supposed to ignore my SSID and it still wants to do it, and then I pull my phone up and nothing's working, and why isn't it working? Oh, the VPN is on even though I'm home on my Wi-Fi network.
You know, I think that's pretty impressive that, like I run Tailscale, which is WireGuard, right? And it just works in the back end so much that I forget that it's running until I run into a situation like, why can't I log into my freaking bank?
Right.
Oh, let me turn this off real quick. Yeah.
Because in theory, I leave my house and I instantly get connected back home with all my DNS filtering. That's wonderful magic.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish in execution it wasn't something that I even had to, oh wait, something's not working because probably that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and everybody should run AdGuard at home. Everybody. Just side note there.
I have my Ubiquity, and so I use it to watch sports from areas where like local broadcasting wasn't available. So you connect up to Xfinity.com, right? And you're going to watch stuff from different locations. And say you're on vacation in California, it's not locally broadcast, so it won't let you watch it. But if you connect up on your VPN, and then now you're going out your own public IP, now you're local.
You're talking new school Slingbox. Remember the Slingbox? And I'm not talking about the dish streaming service Slingbox. I'm talking hardware OG Slingbox.
Wasn't that like they were selling that for like a year and a half, and then everyone just jumped all over him and sued him into oblivion?
That was the guy who had the antennas in like on a roof in Manhattan.
Yeah. Okay.
And had like multiple antennas, these little tiny antennas. Slingbox was this little black appliance that you basically hooked your cable line into. And then you had hooked and it had an Ethernet port and it had an infrared blaster.
Mm-hmm.
You pointed at your Comcast box, and basically it had guide data, so it knew what channel it wanted you. And you say, I want to go to that channel, and it blasts your Comcast box and says, turn to this channel. So it wasn't a second box, right? It would consume a cable box. So if your mom's watching TV and you're on Slingbox and on your app on your phone streaming it and change the channel, it changes the channel what she's watching, right? But theoretically, Jeremy, you could squirrel away a box in a closet on an extra and pay her the $10 a month for the extra cable decoder box and hook the Slingbox up to it and do exactly what you're saying. And then they nerfed it, and that was one of those rug pulls where they started like doing a subscription service for hardware that you bought kind of thing. Well, wait a minute, what am I subscribing to?
Welcome to 2025.
Yeah. Everything's a subscription.
But I'll tell you, it's funny. I mean, not to incriminate ourselves, but speaking of sports, I had a multi-layered thing going until finally it got blown up. So I'm into professional cycling, and they had a network called GCN. And they have a channel on YouTube, Global Cycling Network. They're a great, really enthusiastic group of people who do all these videos and all this stuff. And they had a $50 a year plan. And you sign into it. And depending on what country you're in, you have rights to races. So like GCN didn't have rights to the Tour de France because NBC has it, right? But if you VPN into Belgium, boom, every single race on the calendar is at your menu because they've got it. So it's $50 a year. Well, Warner bought them, deprecated it, then split it off, and so there was Eurosport. Discovery Plus was the service, and it was like $7 a month, but you could only get it in the UK. So I had to get a fake UK SMS number in order to get a fake UK PayPal account, in order to then get a fake Apple UK account to download the UK version of Discovery Plus, VPN all the way to the UK and do this, all those layers, and then they just raise the price to like €30 a month, and the hassle, the hoops to jump through. So I just ended up getting Peacock and Max locally. They got me. I couldn't beat it.
Too much work.
It is. I used to fancy myself a nice little hacker, but here we are, defeated and legitimate.
We get these jobs, we get these careers going, we start to make better money and decide that, you know what, my time is worth more than futzing around with trying to get that.
And I agree with that, and I'm to the point where even before, I'm happy to pay if it's worth the payment, right? It's like Peacock. The first chance I get to use it, technical difficulties. No, this is why people pirate. Mm-hmm. Don't make me pay and then botch it up. Mm-hmm. Like if piracy is super easy. Make streaming that Apple TV. It's like $6 a month, and it works every time you go to it. Great. Why would I pirate it? Like that kind of thing. Make it easy, and yeah. And don't make me sign in every 3 days like I'm a criminal. Mm-hmm. And I won't become a criminal. Mm-hmm. Yep. Guys, you'll have to test out some of that streaming on the Starlink too. Make sure that's all on the up and up.
That was, I think, one of the first things we did. I set it up on the boat. Like we bought it and then went out, like left. So I unboxed it on the boat and set it up on the boat, and it let us watch some movies, a couple of TV shows. I was surprised.
Super cool. So, Jeremy, if someone's got questions about this, I'm guessing they want to ring you up and try to get in front of you?
Absolutely. Jeremy at ivoxy.com, and if you know me, or you've had an email before, you know my number. So
Yep. You can always reach us at podcast@ivoxy.com or info Matt or M or Matt.Yette. Also, Coz took Matt. He beat me here, so he's earned that. So
There's only
yeah.
one Jeremy.
Which
So
is
far.
kind of an anomaly
Give it a
because
minute.
usually to work here you required to already have somebody named you. That's usually how it works.
3 Matts, 2 Tylers. Yeah.
Tyler's. We've had multiple Lorries.
Hmm.
Yeah, all of that.
Murder of Crows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Here
funny.
too. We had multiple Chris's, Eric's. Yeah, good stuff. Well, Jeremy, thanks for joining, man. I know it's been a while since you're on, but I hope we can get you back here a little more regularly, man. You're always fantastic and great info, man. I really appreciate the time. Very busy schedule.
I appreciate joining.
Cool. Yeah. So don't forget about that workshop for VCF operations. Again, April 10th. Pop on over to your favorite web browser to join avoxy.com and register, and we'll hope to see you there. And other than that, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for joining, everyone. Kaz, good chatting with you.
You too.
All right. Until next time.